I read the scripture. We don't always get things in order, but if you have time, sometime, go back to the first part of Samuel 17 and read the whole chapter. The title of the sermon, if we can put a title on it, is Removing Giants, Removing the Fear of Giants. You can be seated. I'm sorry. You don't have to stand up the whole time. Now, David was the son of Jesse. He was a shepherd, and he was a scrappy young man. Back in the earlier part of the chapter, he told about killing lions and bears with his bare hands. Now, God had to be with that young man, and he'd take the lamb out of their mouth. He was really a good shepherd. And the Philistines and the Israelites were fighting. And they were on one mountain, and the Philistines were on another mountain. And there was a creek in between. And the Philistines told the Israelites, if you defeat our warrior, our champion, then you can go free. But if you don't, then we'll capture you. And I have to say Goliath was a giant. Now he was, according to the Bible, he was 9.5 feet tall. Can you imagine somebody 9.5 feet tall? That's probably taller than the trim on that door there, and probably just that wide. And he had I researched this, he had a pituitary disease and caused abnormal growth. And because of this disease, he was nearsighted. And so he challenged David to come to me, and I will feed your body, your carcass, to the fowls of the land and to the beast. And David knew that he couldn't get close to Goliath because of his strength. And if he got a hold of him, he'd probably just break him in two. So David had stopped in the brook or the stream and got 5 smooth stones. It only took one. And he used his sling. He challenged Goliath, said, you come to me, or when I get through with you, with God's help, I'll feed your body to the fowls of the air. And David used a sling. Now, how many in here has made slingshots with inner tubes and shoe tongues? I know everybody has done that, but this sling was different. That's what they used, and they used it because of its, practiced a lot of its accuracy and easy to use, because it was better than a bow and it could go further than a bow. But the sling was probably the length of your arms, and in the middle it had a widened out piece of leather to hold the stone. And probably stones were used a lot because that's all they had. And it had a piece of leather that was made a ring to go around the forefinger, and the other one was loose in the hand, and they held it like that. And it probably slung it with, way I understand, in a figure 8. And they got used to that. And it was really, had some velocity to it, because that stone went in Goliath's head and made a big hole and stayed there. Now, I don't know if that killed Goliath, but it did knock him down. And David didn't have a sword, so he jumped up on Goliath and took his sword and removed Goliath's head. And they was very appreciative of his courage. Now, that took a lot of courage. Nobody else wanted to fight the Philistine giant, but now David wanted to put armor on, Jesse wanted to put armor on David. He said, no, that just slowed me down. And anyway, he didn't use armor, but I think God helped plant that stone right there, because that would be a hard shot, and but he did it. And as you notice back in the scripture, how many times David used God's name. And I think God was with David from the whole time, and he rewarded him. Anyway, he slew the giant. Now, God is in control. Just like today, your Sunday school lesson, I read it too, that Moses should have been killed by riots, but his family saved him by hiding him in a basket that had pitch on it, and they put it in where the Pharaoh's daughter would hear the baby crying, and she took care of it, had it brought to her, and somebody said, do you want me to find a mother to nurse him? And she said, yeah. Well, guess what? God was in control there, because Moses' mother was there, and she had the joy of raising her son, let alone seeing him live. And Moses grew up to be a good servant for God. Like Noah. Noah built the ark because God told him to. He built it so many cubits wide, so many high, and so many long, because that's what God told him to. And a lot of the people made fun of him, but he did it. Now, another thing, the giants in our life. We all fear that. I have giants. I've had cancer 3 times, and I fear that it'll come back. But God has made that fear less, because he has brought me here so far. It's not done. My wife had cancer, and it was hard for her. I've seen her so sick, I thought she was going to die. But she's here today, thank the Lord. And we've been together 48 years, and we have overcome lots of giants. And I know lots of you all have been married longer than that, and you've overcome giants. But I want to say today that if there's a giant that's bothering you, that you can't get rid of, you can't fight off, let the Lord help you with that giant. Ask for guidance, ask for help. Now this altar is always open, and as Scott comes and gives us a song, we ask that each and every one that's here to examine themselves. Maybe Scott's not here, is he? There he is. To come on, and if you don't have the trust in God to get help from the Lord, then ask somebody to help you realize that giant, you can always whip that giant. But he probably won't ever remove the fear, but he can help you cope with it. He helped me so many times, and I'm just so glad for him that he is there, that we can always call on him. We may have giants that are there that's holding money against us, it's holding sickness against us, it's holding lots of things against us. But if God will help David, he can help us. So as we sing a song, like I said, you don't have to come to the altar, but your time, if you're holding that giant, if it's got a hold on you, just pray today, tomorrow, tonight, that you can overcome this giant. And we thank you for this time.